Before talking to me, did you even know the word perimenopause?
This should be a word that I've heard discussions have been had around the dinner table.
What are some of the questions that you're asking yourself?
What should I know? And what should I be worried about? And what should I watch out for?
Comfortable sharing your experience?
My general checkup should include how my cycle is.
We talk about pretty deep stuff with girlfriends, at least I do.
Living a very full and busy life.
Is there one thing that I want you to take away from this episode? What would it be? I'm Dr. Beatrice Seguin, PhD, and you've landed on my podcast this time of the month, your trusty sidekick to the midlife roller coaster. I chat with experts digging into legit solutions for midlife hurdles, be it health or lifestyle. Ready for the ride? Dive into this time of the month. Subscribe and catch the latest episodes on our channel. Let's own this midlife magic together. Before talking to me, did you even know the word perimenopause?
Yeah, I think it's like starting to, the algorithm, if you will, is starting to like circulate its way into my feed. And so I'm hearing people talk about it, but it feels like conversations that are either with experts or not really very accessible. Given the fact that women are spend half their lives either in perimenopause or in menopause, it feels like a conversation that should be had all the time. It feels like this should be a word that I've heard and discussions have been had around the dinner table at holidays. It feels like something that should be part of, quite frankly, like regular everyday conversations, and yet it isn't. So it seems to be either in these spaces that are hyper intellectualized, PhDs, experts, which is important, or in some kind of hush-hushed tones in some corner, and neither of those feel really accessible to like everyday people.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I certainly shared that experience, and I think many women will identify with that. It's funny that we're so close to our girlfriends. And we talk about pretty deep stuff with girlfriends, at least I do.
Yeah.
With some of our closer friends.
Absolutely.
Why is it that we don't talk about?
Such a great question. I don't know what the answer is. I wonder whether there's enough uncertainty for those of us who are all in it together and this in a similar season where maybe we're unsure, and so we don't feel like we can talk about something. When you're pregnant, you're pregnant, and you can talk about being pregnant because you know that what's happening is because of this. And I think with perimenopause, you don't know if I just gained weight because I haven't been diligent with my gym routine or because there's something that's different that's happening in my body. And so I think there's maybe some uncertainty. There's definitely some shame around, or discomfort around saying my body looks different. I don't feel the same. There's pretty intimate things that you're talking about that I think can make it difficult. But I definitely think for me, a big challenge is I don't know if this is perimenopause or just I'm not sleeping well. Sleep hygiene.
Have you been proactively approached by a primary caregiver on hey, here's your
No. And I think that's also a part of it. I was thinking back to being pregnant and any transitions, really. Even a newborn, she goes to see her pediatrician and she tells us these are the milestones to look out for the next 6 months. And when you come back, I'll get another sheet of paper to look out for the next 6 months. And it doesn't feel like we have that roadmap. Certainly not. It hasn't come very easily to me to figure out what that roadmap is and what to look for. Same thing with pregnancy. You have checkups at a specific interval, and they know what to expect and what to look for.
There's so many books.
There's so many books.
Although there are more books now around menopause, but do you even know about those, for example? Again, how accessible is that?
Yeah, there are, I think something's happening where there's more talk and there's more books. But when I was pregnant, there were aisles on aisles on aisles of books. And I didn't read all of them, but there's something comforting about knowing there are answers if I need to look something up. There's somewhere to go. And it was definitely a conversation you could have with your girlfriends because you knew you were in either the same season together or you weren't. And that makes it easier to kind of broach some of these topics, I think.
I wonder, do you think it's because with pregnancy there's a celebratory aspect to it?
True. Yeah, you're right. This is not something that is celebrated.
In society?
Yeah, it is like the end of something. It is the grieving or the passing of a season as opposed to an exciting something to celebrate. And that definitely, I think there's an undertone of that. You're right.
Do you think that? It felt that way for me, but it may not feel that way for everyone. So I'm curious about Your perceptions of this season.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it so much, but I think for me, I'm fortunate to have the family that I would want. And so there isn't like a longing, it isn't an end of something. Being able to have more children isn't something I want right now, or ever. But I think, so that part that feels okay, feels like ending my child rearing years doesn't feel heavy, but it does feel like there's some womanhood that is shifting, or like what it is to be a woman post-menopause is maybe different, and I haven't quite wrapped my mind around whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, or a celebration or a mourning, because it feels like that's just the season that has to come my way, and I have to figure out how I feel about it as I get through it. But maybe that's a part of what makes it hard, is we don't know if we feel good about it.
Yeah.
For some of us, we don't feel good about it. I imagine that's certainly the case for many. I think, for the most part, I'm okay with not having children anymore, the ability to have children, but it means many other things too, which I think is a hard part. Our bodies change. What does that mean? I'm less happy about that.
Yeah.
For example,
when you're wondering about am I or am I not, would there be a symptom that you most associate with perimenopause?
Yeah, I think very clearly skipping periods feels like that's the entry into perimenopause. But I hear there's so many more things to look out for, and sleep being one of them. Definitely changes in your period, even if it's not skipping periods.
Yeah.
Is something that I hear. But that stuff can change for any number of reasons, some of which are our own doing, like whether it's habits and lifestyle. So then there's a little bit of guilt and shame around, am I not doing enough to support my body and to take care of myself and my own wellness when we're at such a busy season in life?
Which is kind of crazy to think that we're having shame for not doing enough when we actually don't even know.
Yeah. If there's anything that
can be done.
Yeah.
And what should be done. So in an ideal scenario, what would you like accessible menopause care or education
I think
to look like? Yeah.
I think for starters is just like normalizing it as like a season in a woman's life. And it still feels like you just kind of fall off a cliff. It's like menopause, you're done. But there's that's a big season, like 5, maybe 10 years of
that's
shifting.
Perimenopause. But postmenopause can be 1/3 to half of your life.
Yeah. These are big seasons that I don't think we talk about in a way that is particularly like edifying and uplifting. And certainly there doesn't seem to be care that is specialized. I was talking to my aunt who's a nurse, a retired nurse, on the way here, and she's like, you don't have a gynecologist who talks to you about this stuff? I was like, no, I only have a gynecologist if I choose one during my pregnancies. Otherwise, unless I'm unwell,
you don't really get referred to gynecologists here. Yeah, in this context, yeah.
And so it would be great to be like what to expect when perimenopausing. I don't know if that book exists, but there are many books out there. It just feels like the conversation should be had with our primary caregivers, but should be happening with our girlfriends and sharing what our experiences are and normalizing some of them. But it feels like there should be more access to care that lets you know where you are and what could be coming your way. I think that it feels a little bit like we're blindsided by, that's a hot flash. And like, I should know that could be coming soon, and that's a normal thing, and what is not normal, and how much of a hot flash should you start to think of getting some support around.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. For me, it would be just nice to know these are the things to expect.
One of our guests mentioned how nice it would be to have this kind of checklist, a proactive checklist that your primary caregiver, or in a even better scenario, team would go over. How does that resonate with you? Yeah.
And maybe that's just my personality type. I love a list, but I think beyond a list, it's like I go for a checkup and I don't even think it's like a conversation, like my general checkup should include, at this age, questions about how my cycle is, and how, what could be coming soon, what to look out for. The same way you get that if you're at your 6-month checkup with an infant, you have a sense of what's coming in the next 6 months and what's worrisome in the next 6 months,
Are you comfortable sharing your experience with primary caregiver and in the context of perimenopause? Like, have you said, hey?
Yeah, most recently I did.
Yeah.
I have an appointment very recently. I try to do my annual checkup around my birthday. And I don't know if I was prepared enough, but I just spewed a bunch of symptoms that I think would have led someone to believe that maybe, I'm not sleeping well, my periods are a bit different. Brain fog, so much brain fog. But, brain fog could be attributed to the sleep or could be attributed to many other things. And the response was, okay, let's do blood work and have a sleep test done. And no real acknowledgement that this could be attributed to just this season in my life.
So the season was not mentioned?
At all. And I asked point blank, I was like, could this be perimenopause? I'm not sure. My mom, her menopause was about 6 years from my current age. And so, yeah, it feels like this could be, the beginnings of something. And maybe it was just saying, don't get ahead of yourself. Let's see what comes back on the blood work, but didn't also feel like it was acknowledging what my instincts were, what I suspect, or what even could be a reasonable alternative to I'm just having bad sleep,
Yeah, and this is what fuels my passion more, because just when you think this should be standard of care, standard of practice, we still hear downplay, or very interesting to me is lab work.
Yeah.
When we've had several guests on our show who confirm, and the evidence shows that it's a clinical diagnosis. It's actually based on your symptoms. And if you're bothered by those symptoms, and you rule any concerning things out. So maybe that's what your doctor's doing.
Exactly.
We'll give them the credit. Like
Yeah,
the benefit of the doubt. They mean well.
Yeah.
Okay, this isn't about bashing doctors, but at the same time, can we do better? Can we just, it's a clinical diagnosis. You've listed pretty obvious things. You're in the realm.
Yeah.
And you walk away with more questions.
Exactly. And it, some of it is just reassurance, which maybe isn't the job of a GP, which is to your point of maybe there's a team and maybe we need to look at healthcare that is a little bit more holistic, because I think in many ways my GP did their job in terms of making sure that we're ruling out some very, concerning things. But at the same time, if it's none of those things, then what?
Then what?
Then what? Because my blood work has come back, and it's not like I have low iron or any other things that would equate some lack of energy, poor sleep overtly from the blood work. So it still leaves you with a then what?
Oh, so you got the blood work, and then there was nothing. There's no.
So I haven't done the sleep test yet.
Okay.
So we still have some diagnostics to look at, but at the end of the day, I still have to figure out what I'm going to do to make sure I'm rested enough and my brain is functioning well enough to run a business and take care of 3 kids, and none of that functions if I can't get to the root of what's happening. And some of it might be like there's nothing I can do, but even some reassurance around, well, this too shall pass. This is a season, which is where you go to next. And I think some of it is maybe the community of women. Maybe that's the solution.
We need to rely on each other. That's why we're here. I mean, you mentioned, you're busy.
Yeah.
You're a professional. You're an engineer. Professional woman, raising a family.
Yeah. Running a company, traveling all the time.
2 continents.
Yeah. Living a very full and busy life, as most women are. And
is it fair to ask you to figure it out?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens now. So now it's okay. Is it this? Who can I talk to? Who's a little bit older than me that is open to share their experiences? And we've talked about this. Black women typically have earlier menopause, and from other experts that you've had, have a harder road go often. And I have some friends who are dealing with fibroids and other challenges. Some of that journey is tough. And so if you don't know what to expect, it's even harder. Basically, you're going to get blindsided. And that's the part that I think is really unfair is, for some people, it's a really easy, smooth transition. And for others, there's some challenges along the way. And it would be helpful to know what to expect.
Is trust one of those challenges?
Tell me more.
I want you to tell me more.
What do you mean by trust?
Trust in the healthcare system.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole podcast on its own. I think there's definitely, my relationship with healthcare and the relationship of many women of color is, it's a system you have to access, but it isn't one that always treats you with the most care and the most regard. And so we do rely on each other and sisters and cousins and friends to give us the real and what to look out for and the real. And I think that's part of maybe what I'm looking for. It's like, what's the real? Like you can tell me estrogen numbers and statistics, but like really, what are we going to do for the next 5 years or 6 years or 10 years? And then what does it look like, for the 30 thereafter? Which I think shouldn't be that. Doesn't feel like it should be so complicated.
Shouldn't be a secret.
Shouldn't be a secret.
Shouldn't be so hard to find.
Shouldn't be so hard. And
the real
complicated.
Is not,
Yeah. It's like if this is women's everyday lives and they're going to work then certainly it should be something that is easy enough to talk about. Which to me is what you've created here is this space, beautiful space where you can have real conversations with real women about all the things that come with this season, which I think is really important. I think it's really special.
I really feel privileged by the fact that you're sharing this, your story. We all have our unique approach to this season of life. What is something that you would want your girlfriends to hear?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm having dinner with some of my girlfriends later today, actually, especially now that I'm feeling all glammed up. But I think there is, I would want for my peers and my girlfriends and my sisters to be able to share it. I think, motherhood for sure for me was a lesson in like, I don't believe in like nuclear family. It's me and my husband and raising our children alone and we're solely responsible for each other. But I think even as ourselves, we're not solely responsible for ourselves. Like our sisterhood and is what has carried us through all these other seasons. And so it feels like this is a time to like realign, like lean in even further again into that community of women, whoever they are for ourselves, like my roommates from university and my cousins that I grew up with, to like lean into those relationships in a way that allows and creates a space for people to share. And to be like honest and vulnerable about, what's happening with us and to us. And I think the challenge is that we're all in different seasons there. But it was the same with motherhood.
It was.
Like motherhood was something that we all shared, even though someone has a toddler and someone has a teenager and someone's trying to conceive, Yeah. I think there's a way to share it.
There is a way to share. Dr. Jen Gunter, in her book, The Menopause Manifesto, which I have done a review on before, but if you haven't read it, it is a really good read. In the beginning part of the book, she talks about how we've lost that passing of wisdom, right? From mother to daughter, sister to sister, and I mean it in the broad humanity sense. And I really feel that, and I hope that this is, a little bit what we can recreate, because just by talking about what is happening to our bodies, ever since I've just started the podcast, now people come up and they tell me some of their stuff, or I'm less and less shy. I mean, I've put it out on LinkedIn what my symptoms are, so I guess the world knows. But it would be remiss if we didn't talk about the important work that you're doing. It's really important for me to highlight feminine leadership. And so tell us what you do. I love that you called it feminine leadership. It's something that I've leaned into in the last few years, really, that my leadership is going to be different than my business partner and other men that are in leadership in my company. So I'm a co-founder and a director of ESP, ES Partners, and we work essentially with a mission to support entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa. So we've done this for about 14 years. We've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, those entrepreneurs have created 10,000 jobs, I think is our current count. And really the nucleus for the idea is we believe entrepreneurs have the ability to create prosperity and create jobs and solve problems. And so we designed our company to really serve and support those entrepreneurs in their mission. And then we work with other people who influence the environment where entrepreneurs work. So we act as advisors to governments and donor partners. So that's what I do all day long. And this is both, is it a bi-continent
I live here.
Yeah, tell us.
And my work is all in Africa. Okay. So my team, our headquarters are in Abidjan in Ivory Coast. And other office is in Kigali, Rwanda, where my family is from, which is awesome because it means I get to go home from this home to that home quite frequently. Means a lot of time on planes, but that's how I am the Canadian office. Me in my office upstairs in my house. So I'm the only one based here.
And tell me, what is your experience of feminine leadership?
I think feminine leadership to me often is undervalued. We're told that the way to lead is we actually have to mirror men. So drop the tone of your voice, like
lean in.
Lean in. Lean in. Me and lean in. That's a whole thing.
We should do that as its own episode.
And yet I found, things like empathy, things like really listening. There's a way that men are taught to advocate first, to push for a decision that is in their favor, whereas women are socialized often to develop this ability to hear and understand our environment. And, sometimes that can lead to too much and people pleasing and all kinds of, but it actually develops a muscle in us that I think can be really strong and powerful when used in leadership. So for me, feminine leadership is about leaning into those feminine traits and applying them to lead an organization, a family, a home, a community, and a business, because I work with entrepreneurs. So I think there's something really powerful, and women make great entrepreneurs. Actually, the statistics say
the data shows it.
Women are amazing entrepreneurs, and yet we act as if the prototype, when we think of an entrepreneur or a businessman,
a bro in jeans,
a businessman, it's even
or a business, I
can be in jeans, but yeah. So for me, that's what feminine leadership has come, but it's also an evolving thing for me. So I've, really been thinking about what it means to have equity and inclusion. And we often think about young families in companies. How do you make sure your company embraces mothers and fathers? Because I think both are important. But more and more, as I transition into this next season, I'm like, what does that mean for being inclusive to women in a different season of their lives? Who, for me, it's like the little bit of brain fog, but still make really great decisions. I can still be really boss. But if I forget the name of what's that guy's name again? It can really shake your confidence as a leader. So really trying to think about what does it mean to be inclusive and what does it mean to make space for women leaders in this season of life as well.
I really look forward to watching you grow into this role, because I think we need more models like you. There's such a debate, and it's not even a debate, but some people think, this doesn't belong, don't talk about it, let's not mention it. We don't want the patriarchy to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think if we had more models like you.
Well, we're all trying. And I think part of it is just, taking up a little bit of space. Taking up a little bit of space. I think having pads in your office, washrooms, was this thing that was really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And now it's like, actually, you know what? If you don't have that in your office, I think you're a little bit backwards. Like, women have their period when they show up to work. Mm-hmm. And they may not be prepared. And do you want them to go home? How are you as a company making space for that? And I think it's similar. We just have to think about how do we make space for women in this season and in all of our seasons. And I think that's maybe that empathy thing, like really feeling for each other in a different way that I think, will make workplaces better.
Totally better. I think empathy is a fantastic word that we need to lean into. And feminine power.
And feminine power. Yeah, I think, women across the world have always been leading. I think we often don't recognize it because the things that are markers of leadership we associate with men. And yet we see parts of the world, Rwanda, a little humble brag, but Rwanda has 60% of its parliamentarians are women. And not because of quotas and not because they've mandated, but because there's really this sense of embracing and recognizing, valuing women. And so, and I think, many cultures and many societies really do have a better track record of supporting women. So it's really about taking lessons from wherever we can.
We should take lessons and look outward for some of those examples of societal leadership too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that you have two homes. What's it like to to have the Rwanda home and the Canada home?
You know, it is a blessing in many, many ways. You know, I'm sick of planes, that part is not. But I certainly feel like I get different types of support from different places. I feel like, you know, my mom, my aunts, many of my cousins are in Rwanda. And I feel like there's things that I can talk about with those people. And certainly as I look at this new season in my life, and then there are challenges, you know, some blessings here. My family's here, my husband's here, my kids are here. But I do find that there are some challenges in the context of this world where this home, and by this home I mean Canada, where, you know, as a Black woman in North America, our outcomes in the healthcare system are not, are much worse than our counterparts. And so there's an understanding that I'll have to figure out other alternatives for getting support, whether it's through perimenopause or through menopause, the same way I had to look for additional supports through mothering, whether it was through a midwife or my mom always coming for my births. She was always there. So I think there's something to be said about, you know, what do we do as Black women in particular as we think about perimenopause? Because I think there are additional barriers to accessing care and support in a season that I think all of us struggle to get access and care and support. So for me, part of it is, you know, finding a balance of, you know, what can I access there? There are times I've done my blood work there, gone to go see support, you know, but at the very core, at least I know I have my mom and my aunts and some really trusted women that are part of my village that I access when I'm there, that allow me to be a little bit stronger and be able to, you know, move through different seasons as a Black woman who also lives in Canada. And it's, you know, it is something that at this age, at 42, I know, and so there's no system, education system for my kids. There's no system that I don't wear that burden and like prepare to walk through. I think it is now just a new season that I have to be mindful of. That I'm like, oh yeah, actually, you know, Amanda was saying that it's actually
even MHT.
Yeah,
is less accessible.
Yeah,
Oh, you're okay. You're stronger.
Yeah.
You bear pain more.
Oh my goodness. You cannot access pain care as a Black woman. You cannot. I don't expect to go to a hospital and say I'm in pain and get immediate response to that need. It's not something that is my expectation of the healthcare system in North America. I know enough, and I'm fortunate enough that I have certain privileges in terms of being able to articulate my needs in a way that is maybe going to dissipate some expectations. Oh, she's drug seeking, she's this, that, the other. But I know many women, including myself, who've had different experiences in birthing that don't leave me with much expectations around an already ambiguous season for a woman. So I don't actually even go to my primary care expecting. I think that actually is probably why that discussion felt rambly to me. It's like I went to him to ask for what? Unless I know what I'm asking for from healthcare, I don't expect there to be a proactive response to my needs. I expect to have to go and ask very specifically with very specific language for a need to be met, and maybe I'll get it because I have the ability to articulate my needs in a way that they might accept. But if I just go and say I'm unwell, I don't expect our healthcare system to respond particularly favorably for myself or my children or my husband. So there's a real practice of kind of manipulating my way through a system, which, unless I have enough knowledge, which is maybe why there's an urgency about understanding perimenopause and understanding this season, because if I don't understand it well enough, I won't be able to access what I need. If I don't know, HRT, whatever it might be, if I don't understand it deeply and know whether I want it, whether it's to my benefit or to my detriment or what, then I won't be able to access it just by simply showing up and saying, I'm 46 and I'm having trouble with hot flashes. I don't anticipate that will yield the results that I think it should. So I have to be really armored up with knowledge. I guess that's been one of the key ways I've been able to access care, access most systems, education, otherwise, is because that knowledge. And knowledge that is packed in the way that this world accepts it. So I can articulate, I can write a paper almost, and then I go armed with that knowledge. And that's how I'm able to then access the care. which I think is an unfortunate and an unnecessary additional burden.
It is an additional burden furthering the inequities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such a long season. Like, we keep coming back to this thing of, like, if perimenopause is up to 10 years, and then postmenopausal is up 30, if any of that needs additional support, and I have to advocate
burden yourself with
the
that,
whole time, it is really a weight that can probably break many people. You know, I have a very dear cousin who has been struggling to get a surgery for fibroids. She's well connected. She is intelligent, educated, and yet, like, hitting every wall. And that's in seek of care that is making her lie on the floor in pain, bleed profusely, need transfusions. And so if there's something that's just uncomfortable, there's like a certain doubt as to whether I'm going to get the support I need because I'm, a little bit sweaty. I'm not sure if what I'll have to do, but I certainly have to make sure I'm armed with as much knowledge as possible, as much information as possible, so that I can go in and at least balance some of that power dynamic. Otherwise, I'm at the mercy of, and I've got a great GP who's been awesome.
Yeah, I think, individuals versus systems.
Yeah.
Right? And so I feel like some of this messaging isn't just for our sisters. I feel like we need to bring the system into it. Who is in the system who needs to hear this? Because this double or triple burden of inequity cannot continue. Yeah. I just not sure how we change it other than having these conversations and bringing awareness. But is there more we can do?
It is actually reassuring to know that the people in this room that are part of this community, are aware of it. Because that says that at least the people who are thinking and working in this space, doctors who really don't recognize their bias, that a bias exists, that a bias affects care, like medical outcomes, medical results, health of Black people, children, all the way up to, this season that we're in and beyond. And so, it is a little bit reassuring to know that the people that are thinking deeply about this season are thinking about how it's actually even more challenging for Black people, all women of color, and I shouldn't say women of color, all people that have additional burdens, because education becomes one, language becomes another. You can look the right part, but if you can't articulate to your doctor what's happening, that is an unnecessary burden now that you're not going to be able to access care. We still have a system. And
that's also documented.
That's also documented. Mm-hmm. But there are some very well documented challenges that Black women face with the healthcare system that show up. And I think one of the additional challenges is that as you get to this season, you've had enough disappointments with the systems that you don't even really trust them as a safe place to go.
Charity Kabango, I'm so happy you came on the couch. Is there one thing, if you're going to tell everyone, guys, this is what I want you to take away from this episode, what would it be?
I would say that this is, whether we're in it now, okay, I'm speaking to my peers, whether we're in it now or it's in a year or two, it's inevitable. So this is going to be a season in our lives. So let's take away some of the shame and the challenges around sharing and talking about it. Because whether you're in it or you're about to be in it, or it's 5 years down the road, we're all better if we can share that together, if we can walk that journey together. It's much better than walking any other journey I've ever walked in my life. It's better when you walk it with someone. So that's what I would say.
I think that's a great message. I like to end our episodes with a question, and I know you know what it is. Mm-hmm.
And I told myself I wasn't going to prepare, and I haven't prepared, so I don't know.
Here it goes. Charity, okay. What makes you feel beautiful?
What makes me feel beautiful? You know what? I think what makes me feel beautiful is when I get to show up authentically. And for me, that's like showing up with all the different parts of me, like my shiny bangles from Rwanda, my jumper, because I grew up here and I love 90s hip hop, so I love an overall. When I get to show up as a mom and as a woman and as a leader and as an entrepreneur, and I don't have to downplay any parts of myself, I can really be all those things, then I feel most myself and most beautiful.
Well, I feel all of you right now, and thank you so much for
having
coming.
me. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's Beatrice here. After talking to Charity, I realized how confusing it still is to navigate this part of our lives. If you want to know more, I suggest you check out episode 1 with Dr. Jessica Green. She's a gynecologist, and we went deep. We talked about the definitions of the stages of perimenopause, menopause, and beyond, symptoms, and myth busting. We also feel like we're left with more questions than answers. Charity's still looking for some answers. She's going through tests. So I'm going to track how she's doing, but I also want to know, what things are you struggling with? Where are you feeling we need more answers? What topics do you want to hear about on the show? Leave your comments below.
I used to stick around, definitely not for too long.
There's nothing like cashmere and wool as a fashion accessory. I love my scarves, and I have 2 here for you. One is a higher end brand, and the other is a dupe. Both equally luxurious in feel, and they're timeless. There's nothing better than wrapping yourself in a little piece of luxury in the cold winter days. If you want to indulge, you can go for the higher end brand. If you want to be more budget friendly, there's tons of beautiful wool cashmere options for you out there.
Sweet.